U.S. taxpayers contribute $1 billion a year to fund the Smithsonian institutions. $33 million of that goes towards the National Museum of African American History and Culture, a stunning building that opened in 2016 devoted to the story of Black history in America. They recently launched a tool they say is aimed at talking about race. In it, you'll find packets of information, videos, handbooks, and a page called Whiteness that has now disappeared from the website in a graphic that was titled this: Aspects and Assumptions of Whiteness and White Culture in the United States, which says this, among other things. The individual is the primary unit, self-reliance. Wife is a homemaker and subordinate to the husband. Christianity is the norm. If you didn't meet your goals, you didn't work hard enough. Hard work is the key to success. And last but not least, under aesthetics, it says steak and potatoes. Bland is best. Here now, Mark Thiessen, American Enterprise Institute scholar, and Richard Fowler, senior fellow at the New Leaders Council. Both are Fox News contributors. First of all, I just want to say I'm glad that they took this down, because that obviously means that they recognized how awful this thing came across. Richard, what are your thoughts when you see that? I mean, what were they thinking?
Listen, I can't speak for that graphic, but I think when you read the entirety of the tool, which I spent some today working through and reading through, I think there's some very interesting things on there that's really important to talk about. And I think one of those things that's really important is talking about and engaging in the conversation as a country around white privilege and what it actually means. And the tool talks about what white privilege means, and it defines it as an inherent advantage possessed by a group of white individuals because of the historics, the history in the United States, and the bias of the history of racism and bias, not an individual person, right? Because I can't assess somebody's racial animus, nor can.
But I mean, can you imagine, Richard, if someone took, other races and tried to say, these are the things that they look like and sound like, and here's how you'll know when you find someone like this, because this is the kind of stuff that they think and believe. I mean, that is unbelievable. And honestly, I saw lots of that kind of tone as I went through this, and I find it really, it's offensive.
No, I agree with you. And sadly, far too often for African Americans, that's their lived experience. Just take Black women, for example. When Black women go into the hospital, for whatever the reason, maybe it's because of how they look, maybe it's because of how people judge their threshold of pain, they're 3 times more likely to die from pregnancy-related illnesses. And if they have a college degree, Martha, they're 5.2 times more likely to die than their white counterparts. And I think that's sort of, I understand that,
and I know that. I mean, that's a terrible statistic, and that's something that should be changed. I want to bring Mark in here with your thoughts on this as you looked at this, Mark. What do you think?
I mean, nobody's denying that racism exists and it's a terrible thing and that we should all unite to fight it. But this document, and especially this graphic, this was designed for children. This was designed to teach children about whiteness. And it's insipid. And quite frankly, it's a racist document. It basically says that objective rational thinking, the nuclear family, hard work, self-reliance, politeness, and delayed gratification are white characteristics. That it's racist to say that Black people don't possess these characteristics, or that it's alien to Black people to have these characteristics. This document, if you showed this document to David Duke, he would endorse every word in it. This is what white supremacists have been preaching for years. To have the Museum of African American History, which is a great institution,
it is a great institution,
put this out, which is basically white supremacist rhetoric in the guise of anti-racism, is a horrific thing to do.
I always go back to this quote by Martin Luther King, who's also, obviously depicted and explained in the history of his life in this museum as well, who said that, we strive for the day when we don't talk about white power and Black power. We talk about human power and God's power. And I was raised to believe that we are all equal, that this is the greatest melting pot in the experiment of the world, and that we are all here together to share this country, that we're Americans first. And that's what I find so missing from all the dialogue that is in here.
Can I say something about that, Martha?
Yeah, go ahead, Mark, and then Richard.
This document is a rejection of Martin Luther King's vision. So Martin Luther King, when he gave his I Have a Dream speech, he said that my dream is rooted in the American dream, which is defined by the characteristics that they say here are white characteristics: self-reliance, hard work. He said, my dream is that my children and grandchildren will be judged by the content of the character, not the color of their skin.
Let me give Richard a chance to respond
here are white.
Yeah.
Before I run out of time,
listen, I mean, I'm not saying that this graphic was the best graphic, but I think the entirety of the tool speaks to the work that we've. No, the entirety of the tool speaks to what we've got to do as a country, because I think you're right, Mark, that hard work should pay off. But sadly, and far too often for people of color, hard work in this country still has them behind the lines in inequitable situations. Just like I pointed out to women of color who have babies, who are 5.2 times more likely to die at childbirth.
All right, Richard.
We agree 100%.
Richard, thank you very much for being here tonight. And Mark Thiessen, thank you very much for being here tonight. Always good to see you both. The conversation will continue. There's a long way to go. Thank you very much.